Good evening, Charles Wollin with you on another edition of Black and Azul post-game live here. I'm joined with the rest of the team, Joel Soria, Alex Morgan, Jamon Moore, and Jason Sholl as our executive producer and director. Huge night for the San Jose Earthquakes this evening, a night that a lot of Quakes fans and y'all have been waiting for. The Quakes clinch a playoff berth for the first time in 3 seasons, their first playoff berth under the tutelage of Matías Almeyda. They sneak in at the 8th spot currently at this time. They are able to play for another position and potentially could move up on decision day into a 7th or maybe even a 6th position as well. Of course, the rest of the team is here to break it all down, what it means, and all of that jazz. A vintage performance tonight, kind of some new guard and some old guard combining here for the San Jose Earthquakes. Cristian Espinosa, the record signing of the club, the man of the match tonight. An assist and a goal for him. I guess the first assist was ruled a own goal, and then Chris Wondolowski scoring the second goal, and then the match-winning goal scored by Espinosa himself. Joel Soria, what does this mean for this club? A huge night for Almeyda and co.
When we talk about big victories, this is the biggest one yet in the Matías Almeyda era, without a doubt. It felt like all the pieces were falling into place tonight. We talk about Shea Salinas breaking Cerritos' all-time assist record. We talk about Cristian Espinosa, your most expensive player in franchise history. Not only assist, but also score the third and the nail in the coffin. We talk about the leader, the heartbeat of the team, the eternal captain, Wondolowski, showing up, leading with action, and scoring another goal. You couldn't really ask for anything else if you're within the San Jose Earthquakes organization or if you're a fan. A picture-perfect night for the Black and Blue.
Yes, certainly, Joel. And against the LA teams this year, under Matías Almeyda, it's 6 matches played, 4 wins, 1 draw, and 1 loss. And certainly it's going to do the trick against an LAFC team that's really been a thorn in the side of this Quakes team, but they get a result tonight. And it's such a significant result because a few months ago, we thought this team may have been dead in the water and didn't even have a shot, Alex Morgan. But here they are. They beat LAFC almost seems like many months ago, probably only 6 weeks to 2 months ago to get this good run of form. But tonight they do it, and they do it against LAFC.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely incredible, Charles. It was an amazing performance from the San Jose Earthquakes, and you could sense how emotional it was for the players. Just until a moment ago, they were out here behind us celebrating. They had a big huddle. Then they went over and they applauded. They thanked the fans who are at the drive-in experience on the lawn here at Advaya. They were also blasting music in the stadium. That might have made it hard for you guys to hear us, but it was certainly a really emotional victory for this team, especially under the circumstances. I think after LAFC's positive COVID test last week, this game was only scheduled last night. And everybody thought that was bad for the Quakes to squeeze in another game before decision day against such a strong team. But they proved us wrong. And they proved us wrong because I think Matías Almeyda outcoached Bob Bradley yet again. This is San Jose's second win over LAFC this season. The last one was impressive. But I think this one was even better because they played more aggressively. They created more quality chances. And also because they did it with 10 men, honestly. I just think this was the biggest win for San Jose since their late comeback against Minnesota United in 2017 when they clinched the playoffs. This is a huge result for this club, Charles.
I'm glad that you referenced that, Alex. What a day that was. And although there's no fans in the stadium, with this program, we hope to continue the coverage here for you. So like, subscribe, and hang out with us tonight. We'll bring you Matías Almeyda's press conference and the rest of the players once we get him. Over to you, Jamon Moore. And just like Alex had referenced, he felt that Matías Almeyda outcoached Bob Bradley. Statistics-wise, in terms of possession, it was 58% for LAFC to 42 for the Quakes, and LAFC just edged the Quakes out in shots, 13-12. But 3 goals for this San Jose Earthquakes team. Espinosa with that match winner. Chris Wondolowski with another goal. He adds to his tally in Major League Soccer. And then sending off in that second half. And I want to get your full tactical view, Jamon, if you will, as you answer your overview on what tonight means. But the defending in the second half, really darn good from this team. Better than we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, another pragmatic approach from Matías Almeyda. There wasn't as much man marking tonight. At least it wasn't obvious that it was man marking, because a lot of guys were playing pretty deep off their man anytime the ball would get around the box. And they were packing it in and giving a little bit more space. That enabled the Quakes to get on the break. So the Quakes had 3 goals in their net tonight, but only 2 shots on goal. So 3 goals on a 2-shot on goal effort. They did outshoot LAFC tonight in total shots, 11-8. But it was a very pragmatic approach for this team, and we've seen now Matías Almeyda has been able to make these adjustments. And I think it's those adjustments more than the purple sweater. But yes, it's also possibly the purple sweater. Crazy season, not one that any of us would have chosen to happen. Certainly not for the reasons that it happened the way it did, and all the suffering that this country and around the world people have gone through as a result of a global pandemic. But I think we're going to walk away with some memories about this particular team. And in a game like today, when you needed big goals from big players and a big assist from the all-time assist leader now for the San Jose Earthquakes, they got the job done, just like they got the job done the last game here. And this team is, at the moment, finishing on a high note. There's still points on offer for them and a chance to move up in the playoffs. Against Seattle on Sunday, they will have something to play for, particularly if teams ahead of them end up losing. The Quakes can move up the ladder and get a better playoff position, but now they will have to do it without Jackson Ewell. And so, we'll have to see how the team reacts. We haven't really seen them in this particular type of position before. And so everything's new right now, and we'll get a chance to see what this team is made of in these additional crunch situations.
I think that's absolutely right, Jamon. And I have confidence in this team now that they're able to perform well in those situations, because tonight's game plan, Matías Almeyda adopted a more pragmatic approach, as you say, more defensive, more counterattacking. But it wasn't just that. It was also the execution. It showed that they had the grit and the tenacity. I think it was a pretty complete performance. The first half was strong. It was the first time they've scored 2 first-half goals since August 2019. But then it was really about the second half, I think, because they usually play pretty well in the second half. They've been tied or had the lead at halftime in every one of their last 9 games, I think. But the key was the second half, because against Vancouver a couple weeks ago, they gave up a pretty solid halftime lead. This time, the second half was absolutely clinical. Even though Jackson Ewell got sent off, they were resolute at the back. And dangerous on the breakaway, Shea Salinas came on and made a big impact. He crossed that ball for Espinosa's goal. That was the second time in 2 games that he was introduced and then made the winning assist. JT Marcinkowski also made a couple of big saves. And I think, honestly, they all deserve a big round of applause tonight.
We'll get over to the mathematics and such in just a little bit and show you the live table. But this is Matías Almeyda's first postseason berth with this club. And Joel Soria, you were the first to report that Matías Almeyda was coming to San Jose in late 2018. His first season, they just barely missed out, going on that really kind of dreary run at the end. And now, as Jamon had mentioned, and as Alex had mentioned, somewhat ending on a high. This is big time for Matías Almeyda as a manager and a coach in MLS when he's had some people criticize him as well. But he's got his team into the playoffs. And as we've seen with Matías Almeyda at the MLS is Back tournament, this team performed pretty well.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt about it. The entire organization, Matías Almeyda included, desperately needed this playoff berth. We talked about the way that they were able to execute the game plan today so efficiently, but a couple of months ago, I just think back to the month of September, the month of October, and the storyline was completely different. We were talking about how this team, or at least I referenced it to as a rolling dumpster fire, and that's exactly what it was. But Matías and the leaders within this team were able to rile the rest of the organization and guide it towards a better path. And obviously, we would be lying to ourselves if we didn't think that the MLS playoff format this time around is a bit gracious with certain teams. The Quakes are definitely prospering out of such situation, but you can't take away merits away from this team. They've been able to overcome adversity that they inflicted on themselves. This is definitely going to boost the relationship between everyone within the organization, specifically everyone within the locker room. This is what the Quakes had intended to shoot for since they brought Matías, and they're finally there. So they can definitely rejoice. They can definitely celebrate, regardless of the situation that we're currently experiencing and the current atmosphere at MLS.
If you're just joining us, we are Black and Azul. This is a live post-game edition of our program. Charles Wollin, Joel Soria, Alex Morgan, Jamon Moore coming to you here with our post-game coverage after the Earthquakes clinch a playoff berth for the first time in 3 years. Your comments are filtering in. Andy Thomas, we get into the playoffs and eliminated the Galaxy all from one game. He says, go Quakes. Michael Peachy, watching both LA fans pout on Twitter was great. Alan Catalan, from an LAFC fan, he says, congratulations. Anthony Ratchkov, yeah, what a goal from Espinosa. Probably one of my favorite names currently in the chat room, and you might have to explain this to me. It's Drunk Russian is good. Thought the refereeing was spot on today. Didn't call LA's BS, but the second yellow was fair, and then goes on to say, brilliant game. Pushing for that third goal turned out to be key. Nathan Zaragoza says, let's go. We got Carlos Fierro through with a couple fire emojis as well. Alicio Sandoval, welcome to the program as always. Vamo, vamo, vamo. Proud of this team for being able to perform on such a short notice. Great performance tonight. And that's actually a pretty good segue to talk about this. We just got notification less than 24 hours before this game was even played. We weren't even sure if this game was going to be even played. Heck, going into to Saturday of last week, we had heard about these positives on the LAFC side when it comes to COVID. But let's just slow it down just for a second and be a little bit big picture. We just got to about 100,000 cases a day here in the country, which is a pretty scary place to be when it comes to this virus. But kind of piecing this together with this game, we weren't sure if it was going to happen. And then less than 24 hours, we got the notification it was going to happen today. I'm sure both clubs knew more than 24 hours. But Jamon Moore, when it comes to COVID and it comes to balancing this with sports right now, and I would love to hear the rest of your guys' perspectives, it is just so darn tricky. It really is, because we love sports. Sports are an important part of culture and life. And at the same time, we're going through this pandemic, and we have to be careful. We have to be safe. And we've seen some clubs that have had some issues with this. And so I think there's a balance and a fine line that you kind of have to ride with this type of thing. But again, this game was on short notice. The Quakes do get the result tonight. And I'm not saying, the game shouldn't have been played, but I just kind of wanted to note on that from a 35,000 foot level.
Yeah, keep in mind a few things. We talked about this, back around MLS is back about, the amount of time it takes in order, if you find a positive, to be able to find more positives. And I do think MLS obviously did the right thing in seeing what would happen. And when no further positives emerged, it became clear based upon, the way that this virus works, that the game could be played and could be played safely. Of course, the players who got positives were not present in the game tonight. We don't have definitive on the players themselves. There was a bit of an injury list for LAFC coming into the game. We assume the players are on that injury list. And so, the Quakes did face, a somewhat depleted LAFC side, a side that did not start BWP tonight, a side that did not start Carlos Vela, brought him on at halftime. But it's still LAFC, a very high-quality team. Yes, their defense and their goalkeeping are a little bit suspect this season. But, they have the ability to be able to put a lot of goals in the net. The Quakes had to step up. They still allowed 2. It got a little bit nail-bitey at the end, obviously down a man. And with 5 minutes of stoppage time, that seemed a bit excessive in the moment, and gave up a goal. But at the same time, I thought they did an excellent job finding ways to be able to clock manage and to be able to handle those things. But yeah, obviously the team, I think, is grateful that they were able to play. Going into Seattle with that much rest would have, in this particular season, probably put a little rust on them, actually. If nothing else, they hopefully will get enough rest and be sharp for Sunday with an additional day than they've been getting for a lot of this part of the season, 4 days rest instead of 3.
Let's talk about Chris Wondolowski. I saw something in the chat that at the end of the broadcast, Danielle Slayton had mentioned that this could be Wando's last game at Earthquake Stadium. And our friend there, I'm actually not there, as you can see, everybody, tonight. Raul Rodriguez also said that post-match Wondo interview legit made me cry. Wondo is a legend. And then asked another question just above that. And he said, did anyone see Wondo sitting alone on the field after the match? Let's discuss Wondo. Obviously, there are no words to describe what his impact is to the club and to the game and to Major League Soccer and to this game tonight as well, in terms of the way that he played. Any more insights on that?
Well, I certainly can't deliver one at the moment. We weren't able to watch the post-game interview between Wondo and Slayton, nor was I able to get a glimpse of Wondo sitting down and just kind of soaking in the post-game environment here at Earthquake Stadium. What I can say, though, is that the clock is ticking, and there has been no news, no rumblings of Wondo signing a contract extension. When we asked Wondo if he was going to be staying with the club as a player for the upcoming season, he quickly shot it down and said that it wasn't really time to talk about that, and that he was solely focused on finishing the season as strong as possible, and then weighing his options. Obviously, I'm going to be touching speculation more than not. I would dare to say that, if Wondo was going to stay for an additional year, we would have heard the news by now, or, something would have filtered. But the reality is that, those fronts have been very quiet, and you have to start contemplating that potentially this could be it. But then again, I don't want to make anything final. I don't want to go deeper into the speculation rabbit hole, because honestly, we still, at least I personally can't confirm anything or give an update, really.
I mean, I think Chris Wondolowski has earned the right to decide how he goes out, to decide how he retires. These last 5 years have been at times incredibly challenging to be a part of this San Jose Earthquakes organization. There have been a lot of dark moments for this organization and difficult results, difficult years. But Chris Wondolowski has been a bastion of hope for this team. He's been their eternal captain, their leader on the field. And so he has earned the right to decide how he goes out. I think he can still contribute on the field next year. I think he still has it in him. And I think it would be sad to see him go. But the decision's up to him at this point. I'm assuming, I have to imagine if I were Jesse Fioranelli that I would be offering him a deal to stay one more year. I think it would be absolutely criminal not to give him that option.
Yeah, I've been banging that same drum, Alex, for months now. Honestly, for over a year, I've been saying it time and time again. Wondo decides when and where he retires. End of story. It's that simple. I mean, he's given it his all for this team. He is this team on and off the field. So you have to respect his decision. Although you have to imagine that at his age, considering everything that has really happened within this club over the last 3-4 years, specifically this year, you have to imagine that a player of his age with all those accomplishments and accolades under his belt, that he's definitely going to consider retirement and think about his post-player career, which I think is going to be very fruitful for him, and can also go into a couple of different spaces, right? I think he could either be a coach if he would like to. I think he's mentioned it in the past that he would like to coach the Mustangs, a team up in the Northeast Bay. He obviously can also work for the club. I think the doors would definitely be open for him here in San Jose. And shoot, I'm sure a plethora of other possibilities, but I wouldn't write it off. Him contemplating for 2020 to be his final year. It's a little shocking to me, honestly, that nothing has really surfaced around this topic. It's November 4th, 10:30 p.m., and the majority, if not everyone, is still uncertain on whether or not he's going to continue.
And there's also one more player who's uncertain, and that's Shea Salinas. Shea Salinas tonight, I think, broke the club record for assists in Major League Soccer with that assist to Christian Espinosa in the second half. And he's another San Jose Earthquakes legend who is out of contract at the end of this year. I think he deserves another year at the club. But we spoke to him at last week's post-match press conference, and he gave us a really candid answer about all the different considerations for him: cost of living in the Bay Area, where he fits into the roster in San Jose, and the next phase of his career. I think that he deserves to be able to continue and play in San Jose next year if he wants. I think Jesse Fioranelli should offer him a good deal for all that he's given the club. But that's another open question, whether Shea Salinas will return alongside Chris Wondolowski or not.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, that you guys are both right. Wondo deserves to retire the way he wants. Shea deserves to have an option to be able to be back in this team next year. They deserve to go off into the sunset, together, in my opinion. I would personally, I think for the sake of the fans, like to see this place packed for a Wondo send-off. I think it's the right thing to do. Now the question is whether Wondo wants to wait and see that happens, because we have no guarantee that this place will be able to do that next season at this point. We just don't. Knowing that we hit our biggest cases in a day in the U.S. since the beginning of the pandemic today, it doesn't look bright that we're going to be back to a full stadium next season. The players, the last time they clinched the playoffs here, were down here celebrating with champagne. Tonight, a very different type of story. No champagne, no fans. Other than the cars over there, some of the fans or some of the players walked off over by the scoreboard and waved to the fans that were in the cars. That was their way of celebrating with the fans, this particular clinching moment. Personally, I just would like to see something that feels a little bit more storybook ending. But as Wando told Danielle, plan A is to win the MLS Cup. And if he can do that and go off into the sunset, fans or no fans, he's going to definitely take that option.
Let's talk a little bit about the turnaround of this team. It was just a few months ago that they played this LAFC side, and LAFC had the better of San Jose under Matías Almeyda right up until just a few months ago. I guess my question for you guys is, what has it been that he's been able to do to engineer this turnaround? I know we talked tactically about kind of holding the fullbacks a little bit further back in terms of starting position, and also in terms of just being better defensively in your own final third. But I've seen various comments pop in here and we talk a lot about Bushido and the Bushido code and Matías Almeyda just as an amazing motivator. But in addition to being an amazing motivator, because he's told us that he's doubled down, especially after the bad losses of this club, he's really engineered a turnaround for this team. And there are players like Carlos Fierro, Andy Rios, and Christian Espinosa, and Chris Wondolowski all stepping up at the right time to score crucial goals.
Absolutely, Charles. And I think it was actually the last time that this team played LAFC that turnaround started. It was a 2-1 victory in LA, a late comeback. The Quakes were getting pummeled in the first half, but then they engineered a late comeback, and that was the start of this turnaround. And I think that there are a couple of factors, a couple of reasons that the Quakes were able to improve this much, how Matías Almeyda engineered this turnaround. First of all, I think they're playing more pragmatically now. I think they're playing a little bit more defensively and a little bit more flexibly. They're not man-marking so much across the field. Tonight we saw them drop much deeper into a defensive block when they were defending a lead. I think JT Marcinkowski, he was introduced in that LAFC game. He started that LAFC game. That was one of his first starts. And I think he's kept that starting spot ever since. He's improved this team defensively. Tonight, we saw him barking instructions all across the back line, directing that back line. He made a couple key saves. And I think we've also seen a couple of guys like Carlos Fierro and Andy Rios really come into their own. And this midfield has figured out how to play without Magnus Eriksson. I think all of those threads have come together, and that has made this team able to engineer just an incredible turnaround.
Right, and as of late, you can also add the brilliant performances from Chris and from Shea, who's been an instant impact off the bench. You also have to give a lot of credit to Marcos Lopez, who for the longest time was on the outside looking in. We were all very unsure if he was going to make an impact this calendar year, and when he got his opportunity, he took advantage of it and became, I think, one of the brightest spots of the season. So, yeah, as you mentioned, Alex, a lot of cons turning into pros and a lot of negatives turning into positives at the right time. Obviously, you have to give tons of credit, though, to Almeyda, who, as we know, is a player coach. He's a motivator. I want to say that he tries to put a little more emphasis on the cognitive side of the game, and his expertise came into play, and it totally shifted the fortunes of this club. Matías is used to being in winning positions. He could be a real threat when he's in winning positions. At least his teams can, and this is exactly where you want to see the Quakes. We're finally going to be able to see the Quakes in a do-or-die situation. I want to believe that they're going to be a completely different team come playoffs. The one thing that I'm a little worried about, and that I'm sure everyone else is worried about, is whether or not the playoffs are going to be able to happen on a quote-unquote regular basis. As we know, this LAFC team had a couple of COVID-19 positive tests a couple of days ago. They came out here. We don't know exactly who was infected. We don't know the exposure that the players on the field or on the LAFC side in general had to those who were who resulted positive. And you have to be cognizant of that. I think it's very dangerous if you try to subside such thing.
Yeah, there really hasn't been as much as I think there could have. I think there is some credit to MLS protocols. I think they've been able to minimize the extent of the way that things could have gone outside with the pretty regular testing. USL, of course, not so lucky. If you haven't seen our episode 70, we had a great conversation with Jeff Reuter from The Athletic, where we talked about the 3 Reno players that went to Minnesota United. But we also got in kind of deep on the USL Championship final getting canceled, and we got in on what all this means for the Earthquakes going forward in the U23 league. But that USL Championship final got canceled because you had a team that got COVID positives right before the final. So the MLS playoffs could be anything but normal. There has been a lot of talk about having a bubble, at least after the first round, and putting teams back into the bubble. We certainly have not heard anything about that from MLS. But after looking at what happened with USL, if they want to have this final, if they want to be able to have an MLS Cup playoffs that feels a bit normal, in my mind, the only way to be able to have that is to go back and do another bubble again.
Yeah, I was very impressed with the bubble, Jamon. And just another note on the form of the Earthquakes. Since that LAFC game, 9 matches played, 6 wins, 2 losses, 1 tie altogether. So that's kind of a little bit of the form guide. I do want to talk briefly, and we're going to be joined by Matías Almeyda, Shea Salinas, Cristian Espinosa, and I'm told Chris Wondolowski will be making his way as well to the press conference. So stay with us here on Black and Azul. Playoff probabilities. I'm assuming Jamon and Alex, you've done a little bit of math. I've done some math here on the side. The Quakes would have to beat Seattle to leapfrog over Colorado, or potentially leapfrog over LAFC, and LAFC or Colorado would have to lose in order for the Quakes to jump over them in Seattle, by my calculations. Correct me if I'm wrong, please do. The points per game thing to me is just so wild and a little bit wacky. Emphasis on the wacky. But Jamon, playoff probability wise, where does this team stand? And a win against Seattle, a tie against Seattle, and maybe a loss by Colorado or LAFC, do they get 7th or maybe even 6th?
Right. By virtue of the fact that the Colorado Rapids have only played so far 17 games, they'll have played 18, presumably, on decision day. They right now have 25 points. What that means is that a loss is more devastating for the Rapids than other teams. And as a result, that does make it susceptible, if they lose on decision day, to the Earthquakes, if they can get a result, to potentially being able to step up into 7th. The one wild card could be even LAFC, and what could happen there. So, more than likely the Quakes will stay in their current playoff position. It would be a bit greedy to expect them to go on the road and have the teams ahead of them lose on decision day, but it could happen, and they could move up and get a better seed. But regardless of how you look at it, you're facing Sporting Kansas City, the Portland Timbers, Seattle Sounders. I mean, those are teams that have 36, 38, and 36 points, with the different numbers of games played deciding the points per game right now. But it is, those are all 3 extremely difficult opponents. I don't think it's going to matter that much whether the Quakes end up in the 6th, 7th, or 8th playoff position at this point.
The one thing that I would chime in and add is that there might be games canceled on decision day. If some games are canceled on decision day, that could affect the points per game tally. So that's the only sort of wrench that might come in the process. But I would say that right now we are looking out at the field where the Quakes technical staff, if I can adjust my camera here, the brightness might be too bright. I can try adjusting my lights, but the Quakes technical staff right now is talking on the field together. There's Matías Almeyda, his translator, a couple of his assistant coaches, possibly Jessica Fiorinelli as well. He's sitting on the center circle. You can see them there in the picture. Right now, they are talking, they're debriefing, they've been there for a couple minutes. So it might be a while before we see any of them in the post-match press conference because they're still out there. But certainly it looks like they are relishing and enjoying the moment and embracing this victory.
We just got a notification from Quakes PR that we're supposed to get Shea Salinas and then Matías and then a couple more players after that. So I believe that's the direction that they're going to be going now, although it has changed a couple times just in the past couple of minutes here.
Really good reporting, guys. Wish I could be with you tonight at the stadium as well. Let's go ahead and pull up the standings once more and just refresh what everybody was talking about. There you see the San Jose Earthquakes. They have cemented their place in the MLS playoffs. They have 1.36 points per game. If they want to move up into that 6th or maybe 7th spot, they would need to, of course, win. They would need to beat the Seattle Sounders and then hope for a little bit of luck from potentially a loss by Colorado or from LAFC. And just to note, LAFC plays Portland at home, and Colorado is actually on the road in Houston on decision day. All those games will be kicking off at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. And they're all going to be at the same time in the West. The Eastern Conference games will be at 12:30 p.m. Pacific time as well. Again, the Quakes cement their place in the MLS Cup playoffs. And here is Shea Salinas joining us on Black and Azul episode 71 Postgame Live.
On the playoff spot.
Thanks. I wore a mask for you guys tonight to keep you safe.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for being with us this evening. Following the Quakes' 3-2 win over LAFC to clinch a spot in the playoffs, we are now joined by midfielder Shea Salinas, who tonight set the club assist record. So we can go ahead and jump right into questions, starting with Robert Jonas.
Thank you, and congrats, Shea. That was quite an incredible game and an incredible way to kind of finish off the last half of this regular season. I think most of us had kind of written off the team, and maybe only the members of the locker room were still believers you guys would make the playoffs. My question is sort of twofold. Number one, thinking back, 5-6 weeks ago, before that first LAFC game, what was the mentality that allowed you guys to have this stretch of games to come back as well as you did to make the playoffs? And then for me, the moment of the game was the game-winning goal, Christian Espinosa's third goal there, and feels like almost a microcosm of that season comeback to have adversity, playing a man down, but finding the opportunity when it came up and putting the game goal away. I was hoping you'd talk about both the kind of the season accomplishment and then that goal and how it really set up tonight's victory.
Yeah, that was a long question. I'll try to remember everything. I think what you said at first is so true. I think when we were in Orlando and we had just beat Salt Lake, I think 5-2 was the score, or 4-2. Everyone thought, oh man, the Quakes are so fun to watch. They're amazing. Look at them. And then we lost to Minnesota, and we come back and we start playing poorly, and we lose a few games pretty badly. And everyone's like, wow, this is the worst team ever. What are these guys doing? And then now put a few wins together and we're in the playoffs. And so from the outside, I can imagine that there's been a roller coaster ride. But in the locker room, I think it's been less bumpy. We've been pretty stable, like knowing that we're a good team if we do the right things. I think in that rough patch, we were able to take a step back I think Matías and the staff were able to take a step back and really identify what was going wrong. And I think it was a lack of confidence. We weren't passing out of the back. We were kicking a little more often than we were in Orlando. And so we just started practicing building up out of the back again and possessing the ball in our own 18. And so we were able to reestablish our confidence. And that happened particularly against LAFC in LA. We were able to have a lot of possession that game. We were down 1-0, and we came back to win the game. But even if we didn't win the game, it was a game where we said, man, look, we can play against one of the best teams in the league. We can keep the ball. And that gave us confidence. And from there, we've just been on a roll. We have confidence playing, and that needs to be maintained through the playoffs. So it's been fun. And the particular goal tonight, going down to 10 men, we're up 2-1. You think, let's just hold on to the lead. When I get subbed in, I'm thinking, yeah, let's hold on to the lead. But I knew Luis Felipe could win that header, and just kind of got in behind, got the ball. And I looked up, and Wando was open and Christian was open. So it was sweet just to hit the ball over to Christian. He traps it and hits it far post, and we go wild. I wish we would have won the game 3-1, but 3-2 is 3 points, all the same.
Thank you, Shea. Let's go over to Joel Soria.
Hey, Shea. Could this be your final game at Earthquake Stadium, or do you think that there's still hope that you can stay with the Quakes? And I ask that because we obviously touched on your contract status.
Yeah.
Not too long ago.
Yeah. I haven't even thought about that, to be honest. I think that we have a game against Seattle, and we got hopefully as many playoff games as possible after that. So my focus is trying to go as far as possible in the playoffs. I want to make history here in San Jose, and I can do it this season. So that's what I'm focused on. I think I haven't even thought about that. It's not my last game in San Jose, regardless, because no matter where I am, I'll probably come here and play. But hopefully it's here, and I have a lot of more games here.
Thank you, Shea. Let's go to Jamon Moore.
Hey, Shea, congratulations on the assist record after we congratulated you the last time on tying it. My question for you is really about tonight. You know, how you guys were. It felt like you were a bit more pragmatic with LAFC maybe than you had been, let's say, last year. It felt like you guys sat a little bit deeper. You picked your opportunities to break. The man marking at times was not the same man marking that we typically see. One, is that a fair observation? And two, if it is, do you think that Almeyda himself has gotten a little bit more pragmatic of some of the realities of his system in MLS and adjusting it where he needs to get results this season?
I don't know if I think the game. I think a good coach adapts to the players he has, to the team he's playing, and I think Matías does that brilliantly. And it's important not to totally do a makeover and change. So I think little adjustments here and there, little adaptations, micro evolutions. To win games is important, and I think he does that amazingly. So they're definitely. I think the last few games, not just against LAFC, has been an adjustment of where we pick our time to press and how we press. So yeah, tonight our goal was when they crossed a certain threshold, we would attack. As far as like defending really tight and really intensely. And we would pick those moments. So I think we did that well tonight. And I imagine that will be a theme against most teams as we go forward. But it really depends on who we're playing and what their center backs' capabilities are.
Thank you, Shea. We're going to take 2 more questions, starting with Alex Morgan.
Hi, Shea. Congrats on the victory tonight, on making the playoffs, and on breaking the assist record. There's a lot to congratulate you for. I think I want to ask what it felt like playing tonight's game in the first place, because we only learned that there would be a game last night. So I'm curious when you guys learned, what your reaction was to that news, how you felt playing tonight's game, and then also in the context of, playing in the middle of an election that is lasting a couple of days to get the results, and where there's just a lot of uncertainty in the world right now.
Yeah, I think there has been a ton of uncertainty with the game, obviously with the election. I think for us, it's focused on what we can control. It's something in my life and my career I've tried to maintain as like a motto. It's like, hey, focus on what you can control. You can control how hard you work. You can control your attitude. So we didn't officially know when the game was going to kick off until last night, probably like all of you. But in our heads, the game was always going to happen on Wednesday. So we prepared on Monday like our game was Wednesday. We prepared on Tuesday like our game was Wednesday. And when we found out that our game was Wednesday, we were ready to go. So I think that's a credit to Matías and the staff for preparing us for tonight's game, and just also our mentality. Like we have become a team that can overcome adversity, and so it wasn't that difficult to get ready for tonight's game. And as far as the election goes, it's a ton of uncertainty for our country, and there's a lot of disunity, which is sad. But I think it's important not to put all of our hope in a president and in a government. That's my stance on that.
Thank you. One last question from Alicia Rodriguez.
Thank you. Shea, you strike me as having a little more emotion than you typically do in these post-game press conferences tonight. So I wanted to get a sense from you, just your emotional reaction to making the playoffs and to getting the assist record for the club tonight.
Yeah, I'm actually usually not a very emotional person. I don't have. It's something I can work on. It's my feelings. My wife tells me. No, but this is actually really exciting. Like making the playoffs is amazing. I think the assist record is something that I don't really want to focus on too much. I don't want to take away from the team and the team result, because the guys worked incredibly hard. Like it's a joy to watch the game on the sideline. Like I get the best seats in the house. And then I get the opportunity to go on the field and play for 20, 15 minutes, whatever it is. And I get to go out there and help the guys whatever way I can. So I'm just super grateful for the position I'm in. And I'm super grateful for the team I play for and the locker room we have. So when I get to come in for 20 minutes, it's awesome. And I love the other 70 minutes where I get to watch.
All right. Thank you very much, Shea, and congrats again on reaching the playoffs.
Yep. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Jake.
Welcome back to Black and Azul live post-game here, episode number 71. Charles Wollin with you after the San Jose Earthquakes defeat LAFC by a scoreline of 3-2. We just heard from Shea Salinas, who had the winning assist. He is now the leader all-time in assists for the San Jose Earthquakes. An impressive record for him. Obviously, he's been in MLS for many years, plying his trade, but a nice accomplishment from him. He says making the playoffs is, again, amazing. And he says, we have become a team that can overcome adversity. I'm joined by the rest of the team, of course, Joel Soria, Alex Morgan, Jamon Moore. This was an extremely upbeat Shea Salinas. He always is, but a really historic night for him, and you could just see him gush with so much happiness, Jamon.
Yeah, I mean, Shea is always fun to talk to. Always gives us a different take than we get from pretty much any other player. Wando's kind of that way a bit as well at times in the right situations. But credit to him, the 48th assist. And look, assists are kind of a weird stat because, for all we know, like maybe he's deserved 60 or something like that, because you're at the mercy of someone else to be able to make the finish. But, the way that Shea got it tonight, I mean, that was just a dime ball to Espinoza, well-deserved. And in fact, initially, MLS soccer.com did not credit him with an assist on it. I mentioned that on a tweet, and then people were quick to point out that they had just given it to him. So, because I was texting PR and going like, why is there no assist on this? But it got resolved. He got credit for it, certainly deserved it. He probably deserved many more that were not finished off. But what a way for him to be able to get that tonight. Yeah, potentially his last game at Earthquake Stadium in a Quakes uniform. We hope it's not true, but we know the realities of this business is that it could happen. And if this is his last game in a Quakes uniform at this stadium, a really good way for him to go out and in this type of performance.
And here is Matías Almeyda, who has just joined us. So we'll hear his post-match thoughts.
Matías Almeyda, we'll start by taking a few questions in English and then a couple more in Spanish. So let's start with Alicia Rodriguez.
Thank you. Matías, congratulations on the win and making the playoffs. I know at some points this season you've said that the playoffs aren't really your priority. Your priority was having a good style of football and good team game. How do you feel, though, about reaching the playoffs and having an opportunity to go for a championship?
Tu prioridad no era entrar a playoffs, sino tener un estilo de juego que se siente que significa poder estar.
Bueno, buenas noches.
Good evening.
Realmente estoy muy feliz,
I'm very happy,
muy agradecido por la familia San José,
very thankful for the San Jose family,
en la cual incluyo de jardineros, jugadores, staff,
which I include the groundskeepers,
dirigentes y nuestros aficionados.
which I include the groundskeepers, staff, players, the executives, and our fans.
En los peores momentos y en los mejores momentos he tratado de mantener una calma,
In the best times and the worst times, I've tried to maintain calm,
siendo consciente que había una manera de jugar que nos podía permitir entrar a playoff.
being aware that there was a way of playing that could have allowed us to make it to playoffs.
Por un momento del torneo se había opacado lo que habíamos realizado en Orlando
For certain moments, what we planned in Orlando at home,
y fuimos realmente tranquilos,
and we really stayed calm.
cuidadosos
We were careful
y con mucha fe en el momento de dificultad.
and with much faith in moments of difficulties.
Redoblamos la apuesta,
We doubled down on our bet.
corregimos cosas,
We corrected things,
corregí cosas internas,
and I corrected things within me.
y cuando los jugadores empezaron a otra vez a tenerse confianza, sabía que existía esta posibilidad.
And when the players regained that confidence, I knew that this possibility existed.
Le dije a los jugadores que para mí hoy es una fecha muy importante,
I told the players that today is a very important day to me,
la cual anoto en mi libro de victorias,
in which I write down in my notebook of victories,
más allá de que pase lo que pase en los playoffs,
beyond what happens in playoffs.
porque no era fácil levantar lo que se había caído.
Because it was not easy to pick up what has fallen.
Entonces estoy muy feliz
So I'm very happy
y muy agradecido.
and very thankful.
Thank you, Matías. Let's go over to Jamon Moore.
Good evening, Matías. Congratulations on the
Thank
win
you.
tonight and continued success against the LA teams this season. My question for you is, it looked like, we're in the corner of the stadium and we saw you with some of your technical staff and assistants in the middle of the field after the game, looking like perhaps you were having a little bit of a celebration. What has it meant to you personally to see this team turn around the way it is? And what will you be thinking about as you go back to Seattle, a place where the last time you played, you lost by a large score? Thank you.
Los de prensa estaban en el rincón del estadio después del partido y vio que vos y algunos de los del cuerpo técnico entraron a la cancha con los jugadores a festejar un poco. ¿Qué significa para vos entrar a playoff y qué tenés en mente cuando vas a ir a Seattle a jugar un partido donde la última vez que jugaste ahí perdieron por muchos goles?
Bueno, buenas noches.
Good evening.
Realmente en mi vida siempre vivo el presente.
In my life, I always live in the present.
En un año de dificultad para la gran mayoría de los seres humanos,
In a difficult year for most human beings,
un año de incertidumbre,
a year of uncertainty,
la misma que tuvimos previo a este partido, se jugaba, no se jugaba, lo preparábamos, no lo preparábamos.
and that same uncertainty we had before this game. We were going to play, we weren't going to play, we got ready for the game, we didn't get ready for the game.
Cuando nos juntamos en la mitad de la cancha porque el objetivo principal era este.
When we got together in the midfield, it was because the first objective was this one.
Cuando los torneos se juegan con playoff,
When you play tournaments with playoffs,
primero hay un torneo que es entrar a los playoffs.
first is a tournament, which is about getting into playoffs,
Y después inicia otro torneo que es el playoff.
and then another tournament begins, which is the playoffs, which are the playoffs itself.
A los jugadores les dije desde hace un tiempo
I told the players a while ago
que no está en mi diccionario de vida
that it's not within my dictionary of life
entregarme.
to give myself up.
Digamos, uno puede estar herido.
One can be hurt.
Tengo años viviendo en el fútbol.
I have several years
He
living in
pasado
football.
por diferentes momentos muy fuertes,
I've gone through different, very strong moments
en lo bueno y en lo malo.
with good and bad.
He tenido una carrera que a mí me ha gustado, la que hice como jugador,
I've had a career which I liked as a player,
y he construido una carrera como entrenador de la misma manera.
and I've built a career as a coach with that same way.
A los jugadores los trato de una manera humana, como merecen,
I treat players in a certain humane way that they deserve,
y nunca me encierro en un resultado.
and I never close myself in within a result.
Nosotros por un momento estábamos heridos de gravedad,
Us, for a certain moment, we were seriously hurt,
un ejemplo, ¿no?
for example,
Y les dije a los jugadores que en mi vida personal
and I told the players that in my personal life,
he pasado por momentos de heridas casi mortales.
I've gone through moments with wounds that were almost deadly,
Y mientras me dejen respirar,
and as long as I can breathe,
sé que voy a luchar con lo mínimo que tenga o con lo máximo que tenga.
I know that I'll fight with the smallest that I have or the largest that I have.
Eso he tratado de transmitirle y de inculcarle a estos jugadores cómo siento el fútbol,
I tried to transmit that to the players and make them believe that this is how I live football,
pero más que nada cómo siento la vida,
but more than anything, how I feel about life,
respetando,
respecting,
aceptando,
accepting,
reconociendo,
recognizing,
pero trabajando.
but working.
Y creo mucho en el trabajo.
And I believe a lot in work.
Y más de una vez les dije a ustedes que necesitaba días de trabajo.
And more than once, I've told you guys that we needed days to work.
Los jugadores han interpretado mi manera de ser y la de nuestro cuerpo técnico.
The players have interpreted my way of being and the way of being of my coaching staff.
Y si este partido que quedamos con 10 contra este equipo sería el año pasado o 2 meses atrás,
And if the same thing happened a year ago or earlier this year where we were a man down against this team,
seguramente la mentalidad no hubiese sido de crear 2 o 3 situaciones de gol con un hombre menos.
surely the mentality wouldn't have been to create 2 or 3 goal scoring situations while being a man down.
Me he esforzado para que entiendan que el fútbol es una familia
I've enforced that football is about being a family,
y que cuando cada uno le aporta su granito de arena,
and when everybody gives their little grain of sand,
el fútbol es 11 contra 11 y arranca una competencia.
football is 11v11 and a competition starts.
Estoy muy feliz por lo logrado hasta hoy,
I'm very happy with what we achieved up to today
porque no dejo de mirar para atrás,
because I don't stop looking back,
pero no dejo de mirar para atrás en mi vida.
but I don't stop looking back in my life.
Y en mi vida vengo luchando de los 15 años.
And in my life, I've been fighting since I'm 15
Entonces,
years old.
en mi diccionario
So within my dictionary,
no existe la palabra entregarse.
giving up does not exist.
Si estoy en guerra, voy a morir.
If I'm at war, I'll go there to die.
Thank you, Matías. Let's just take one more in English with Alex Morgan.
Hi, Matías. Good evening. Congratulations on the victory tonight and on making the playoffs. When we were speaking after some of the games in September, it was a very different conversation. The team was at risk of almost being knocked out of the playoffs, and now you're in. How were you able to engineer that turnaround? We've seen strong performances from guys like Andy Rios, Carlos Fierro, JT Marcinkowski in the last month. Maybe the team's played more pragmatically. You guys seem stronger in adverse situations and overcoming adversity. Do any of those things stand out to you? How do you think you were able to engineer this turnaround?
En septiembre las conversaciones eran muy diferentes. Ahora se ve que el equipo ha tenido buenas actuaciones con Ríos, Carlos Fierro y JT. ¿Cómo pudiste cómo pudiste dar vuelta esta situación y darle la confianza a los jugadores para poder salir de eso?
Yo a los jugadores los veo todos los días.
I see the players every day.
Soy un gran observador
I'm a great
de miradas,
observer of looks,
de actitudes,
of attitudes,
porque vivo en el fútbol desde los 15 años.
because I've lived in football since I'm 15.
Nadie quiere perder,
Nobody wants to lose.
nadie quiere hacer malos partidos.
Nobody wants to have bad games.
Pero bueno, hay que saber reconocer cuando las cosas no van bien
But you have to know how to recognize when things are not going well,
y tener la templanza y la tranquilidad
but have the temperance and the calmness
para darse cuenta que hay momentos que hay que modificar cosas.
and to realize that there's moments where you have to modify things.
Siempre digo que un entrenador puede tirar ideas, estrategias,
I always say that a coach can give their ideas and strategies,
metodologías de trabajo.
methodology of working.
Los reales actores de este deporte son los jugadores de fútbol.
The true actors of this sport are the football players,
Y está en nosotros darles las herramientas necesarias para que ellos se puedan desenvolver.
and it's up to us to give them the necessary tools to be able to develop that.
Y está en nosotros sacarle lo mejor a cada uno de ellos,
And it's up to us to get the best out of all of them
más allá de los momentos.
beyond the moments.
Thank you, Matías. We're going to take two in Spanish, starting with Carlos Ramirez.
Profe, buenas noches. Carlos Mauricio Ramírez de Telemundo. Fuerte abrazo.
Un abrazo, Carlos, gracias.
Profe, felicitaciones primero por la meta alcanzada. Profe, hoy se estableció el récord de la mayor cantidad de casos de COVID en los Estados Unidos desde que empezó la pandemia. Los playoffs están a la vuelta de la esquina. Hay casos de COVID en MLS, casos de COVID en NFL. Ya se filtró en el deporte. El formato que está preestablecido es para viajar, profe. Le pregunto si cree que la liga debe, en primer lugar, considerar para los playoffs, en vista de la pandemia, aplicar un formato tipo burbuja, como funcionó en Orlando. Y rápidamente, profe, un mensaje que tenga o si se ha comunicado con Diego Armando Maradona luego de la operación. Gracias.
Mirá, Carlos, creo que lo que se realizó en Orlando fue espectacular de parte de la liga. Yo creo que personal, te lo dice la palabra, es personal. Seguimos en pandemia. Hay un rebrote grande en todo el mundo. Entonces, hay que cuidarse y tratar de vivir otro estilo de vida, ¿no? Sobre todo porque no hay una respuesta a todo esto. Yo creo que para la liga debe ser difícil tener un formato parecido al de Orlando, aunque, digamos, no dudo en que sería algo espectacular, porque realmente cuando lo organizaron en Orlando fue algo magnífico, algo para felicitarlos, y de hecho yo he hablado de ese tema. Pero bueno, hoy creo que se debe hacer difícil poder organizar algo de ese estilo. Con Diego obviamente no se puede hablar, estoy comunicándome con gente muy allegada, tengo contacto con sus hijas, con su ex mujer, con un montón de amigos que tenemos en común. Diego, como las noticias han salido, salió bien de la operación y siempre aquello que lo queremos realmente como persona, deseamos que Diego pueda estar tranquilo, que pueda estar en paz y que se pueda recuperar rápidamente.
Thank you, Matías. One last question from Joel Soria.
Buenas noches, Matías. Más que nada, felicidades. Le mando un abrazo.
Un abrazo.
Coincidimos que obviamente se vive mucha incertidumbre en nuestro mundo y más en nuestra comunidad en este país. Sé que obviamente el COVID, obviamente que cambió mucho el aspecto del fútbol, de la sociedad, y creo que también en estos tiempos se habla mucho de las elecciones. Yo le quiero preguntar un poco más de lo mental del jugador, usted como exjugador y como técnico, alguien que ha vivido del fútbol por muchas décadas, ¿cómo puede mantener a su equipo enfocado, considerando que hay tanta incertidumbre en este país, tanta falta de estabilidad? Obviamente que me estoy refiriendo no solamente al COVID, pero sino el tema de las elecciones. Gracias.
Sí, yo creo que no soy el adecuado para hablar de política. Soy argentino, soy un agradecido a los países que me han dado lugar y posibilidades de trabajar, como es el caso en su momento como jugador de España, de Italia, de Noruega, como entrenador en México y hoy en Estados Unidos. No dejo a mí, a mi familia, de poder trabajar. La incertidumbre es a nivel mundial. Mi papá vive en una ciudad de 50.000 habitantes, donde hace más de 200 días que están en cuarentena, y hoy casi la mitad del pueblo tiene coronavirus y no tienen trabajo. Entonces, creo que hago un pantallazo general y realmente pido a Dios que aquella gente que está encargada de tratar estos temas difíciles, que tengan la lucidez para tomar decisiones de la mejor manera. Nosotros podemos opinar lejos de conocer la realidad. Después, de política no me caracterizo por hablar, estoy lejos de saber realidades, entonces lo mío es el fútbol y las vacas.
All right. Thank you very much, Matías and Augustine. And congrats again on reaching the postseason.
Thank you.
There you have Matías Almeyda, the winning manager tonight, and a manager that has solidified his club's place in the MLS Cup playoffs in 2020. He said he's very happy, very thankful for the San Jose family, thankful for the groundskeepers, the staff, executives, and fans. He said he went through the best times and the worst times, figured out there was a way to play that allowed them to make the playoffs. He said, we were careful and calm, much faith, and he doubled down. He said he corrected things within himself and within the team. He also told the players today is an important day for him, of which he writes down in his notebook of victories. He said he always lives his life in the present, especially in a difficult year for human beings, a year of uncertainty. We were going to play the game, then we weren't, then we were, then we had to get ready for this specific game. He also said that I've enforced that football is being a family. Everyone gives their little grain of sand. Football is 11v11. In my dictionary, giving up does not exist. I go to work to die. He says nobody wants to lose. Nobody wants to have bad games. You have to recognize when things aren't going well to realize there's moments where you have to modify things. There is the happy manager and the manager that kind of dug deep to show us a little bit about what may have gone wrong earlier this season and what was important for him to correct. I'm joined by the rest of the team here: Alex, Morgan, Jamon Moore, Joel Soria as well, who are going to be joining me in just a moment as we get them here on the screen. But an Almeyda that, of course, had a lot to say as per usual. An Almeyda that was confident, that was chatting about going through adversity this year and basically giving kind of an A to Z guide of what it was that took him into the playoffs.
Yeah, Charles, I think we caught a really contemplative and philosophical Matías Almeyda tonight. He spoke at length about how he experienced this season with the San Jose Earthquakes. And one of the things that caught my eye was how he said that you have to realize when you need to make changes to change strategies, and also how to get the best out of players, because that's what he did in this last month and a half. He adjusted his tactics in order to get the best out of the team, and then motivated the players to make the playoffs. And the one thing I would add is that we now have Chris Wondolowski. He just enjoyed a beer on the field, and now he's joining us in the post-match press conference.
All right, so we are now joined by forward Chris Wondolowski. Let's jump right into questions and start with Robert Jonas.
Thank you. And Chris, congratulations. I know year after year we ask you what the goals are for the season, and the first words out of your mouth are to make the playoffs. And so I guess we can say mission accomplished, and it's on to lifting that cup, right? Item number 2. It struck me tonight the way you guys played, the mentality on the field was just a great microcosm of what the whole season has been. Started strong, had adversity, fought off, the late comeback attempts, and specifically, I wanted to talk about what ended up being the game-winning goal. You guys were a man down, and out of nowhere, you were able to take the 3-1 lead. What did that show to you in terms of your teammates, yourself, the mentality on the field, and just how important was that to the teams, being able to keep it going and get that win tonight?
Oh, absolutely. Well, first, thank you, Robert. Appreciate it. It was always a huge goal, and first step along the way to make playoffs. But yeah, I mean, the third goal was monstrous. It was huge. A great play by Shea, but even better play by Christian. It was a good touch, great finish. But Shea coming down the flank and being able to create that, and being able to, again, become the all-time leader in assists and do what he always does, and bring a spark to us. And it was a big win for us. It's a big win, both, mentally, but it gets us somewhere. And so it's nice to have that tangible building block that we can kind of go off of. And so I think that it was great to get that win. I think all across the board, I thought we played well. We did let up 2 goals, but I thought our defense played amazing. I thought Marcos Lopez was outstanding. Nick Lima, Florian, Osvaldo, Judson. Oh my gosh, that guy, I think he's still running right now. I wouldn't be surprised if he passes me on the freeway, just running around and covering ground and tackling me there. But again, credit to everyone. It was an awesome game and fun to be a part of.
Thank you, Wando. Let's go to Carlos Ramirez.
Hi, Chris. Congrats on the playoff berth. COVID cases have risen today to a new high in the United States. We've seen cases rise in the NFL, also in MLS. I'm thinking about playoffs now. Do you think the league should consider going to a bubble format for the playoffs in this new reality that we've seen, this second wave of cases rising in the United States? Thanks.
That's a very good question. I wish I had a definitive answer, for that. Would a bubble be great and make perfect sense for playoff? Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be the best scenario to keep everyone safe, keep everyone on the even playing field, and again, just try to keep everyone safe. I don't think that's going to be the case. So we even talked today. In our celebration, our coach Matías was, be cautious of this, because it's still a huge problem. It's still something that you have to be conscious of. We're living in a pandemic. It's
it's not going to go away. And even after the presidential election, it's still not going to go away. It's here. And so we have to deal with it. We have to be smart. We have to take the right precautions. And again, do the right things to stay healthy, to stay safe. And I think that's going to be the blueprint for all the playoffs.
Thank you, Wando. We'll go to Jamon Moore next.
Hi, Chris. Congratulations on the win tonight and also the goal. There's a few of us up here in the corner of the stadium, for this press conference. We noticed you down on the field, just kind of strolling back and forth there a little bit before you came in here to talk to us. What was going through your mind as you walked the pitch tonight? I think a lot of fans are keenly aware there's a chance it's your final game at Earthquake Stadium. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'm frozen. Hello? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Wando.
Okay, sorry, I was kind of frozen on the screen, so I wasn't sure. Yeah, I was taking it all in. Many different. My mind's everywhere right now. One, I'm enjoying the moment. I'm taking it all in because you have to enjoy the moment. It's a lot of hard work, time, blood, sweat, tears have gone into this. It's been a roller coaster of a year. But I was actually joking earlier. The best time and the time you had fun is the moment you get off that roller coaster. While you're riding it, you're scared and you're holding on and trying to hold on to your lunch and try not to throw that up. But it's still fun after. And I think that's kind of what the season embodied in a roller coaster. It was ups and downs, but we finally get off and I had a blast. And just going through those memories, again, I wish I could give you guys a definitive answer. Believe me, I would, but I don't know the future. I don't know what's going to happen next year. So I also wanted to take in that moment. I hope that we finish as high as we can and somehow we host a playoff game. But I'm also conscious that it could be my last. So I wanted to take that moment in and enjoy every second of it. And every moment I've had at Avaya, I talked to Danielle Slayton. This is my home. I consider it home. I feel comfortable at home. And I will be here and see it from many different views than where I do now, but it will still always be home for me. So.
Thank you, Wando. We'll take two more questions, starting with Alex Morgan.
Hi, Chris. Congrats on the victory tonight and on making the playoffs. I'm curious what you think, how you guys have been able to engineer this sort of turnaround this month, given how poorly the team was performing in September. To be on the brink of getting knocked out of the playoffs to now making the playoffs. We've seen guys like Andy Rios, Carlos Fierro, JT perform well, maybe a more pragmatic approach. Certainly the team seems to perform better in adversity. What are the reasons that you think you guys were able to turn it around like this?
One, it was our belief. The belief never wavered from our locker room. We believe we're a good team. We believe that we can compete with anyone out there whoever we play against. That being said, when we don't execute game plans, when we have heavy legs, when we don't interpret plays the way we can and should, we get punished, and rightfully so. It's there's no rhyme or reason. There is a rhyme or reason. It's very clear why we do get punished. When we execute game plans, when we trigger the right presses and have guys fresh and know what plays need to be made, I think we're a very dangerous team. I think that we can do great things and we expect to do great things. And I think that's where our expectations are and need to be. our expectations, we knew that we were falling way short. Was it probably about a month ago? And we had to right that. We had to right the ship. And I think that, again, we didn't do groundbreaking things. We kind of went back to basics. We shored up our game plan, and then we executed our game plan better than what we had been doing in the past. And I think that's the biggest step forward.
All right, and the last question of the night goes to Alicia Rodriguez.
Thank you, Chris. I have a feeling that the Earthquakes are the only team that could have gone as low as you guys went and come through it and made the playoffs come season's end. And this has been a really weird year for every team in MLS, including the Earthquakes. But it feels like you guys are best prepared to kind of deal with adversity. Is that how you feel? And is that something that, I don't know, have you talked about within the locker room this year that, that you keep getting thrown curveballs, but you manage to hang with it each and every time?
We joke, and I say this facetiously, our team is made for 2020. 2020 is crazy. We're mayhem. That's what our team's made for. And so we love it. Wish we could be a little bit sharper. Didn't have to endure all the valleys. I love how high the mountains are, but we got to make sure our valleys aren't too low and stay a little bit more even keel. But our team's made for 2020, right? I'm smiling. Sorry.
Hey, Wando, do you have time for one more question?
Yeah.
This one comes from Charlie Bohm at MLSsoccer.com. He wants to know about the influence of Matías Almeyda and how you've enjoyed that experience.
Yeah, Matías has a special way to light fires under people and under teams. And he does an amazing job to get everyone to buy in. I love it. The passion is contagious. It's amazing. It's someone that's fun, spontaneous to play for, and that also has a good game plan. Again, I still think that we have a ways to go and we need to correct some things. But that being said, I love where we are as well.
All right. Thank you very much, and congrats again on reaching the playoffs.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight, and we'll see you soon.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Black and Azul Live postgame. Charles Wollin with you here. You just heard from the captain, Chris Wondolowski. That is the last press conference of the evening. He said, our team is made for 2020. We're mayhem. That's what our team is made for. Wish we didn't have to endure all the valleys. I love how high our mountains are. Our team is made for 2020. Joined by the rest of the team, of course, Alex Morgan, Jamon Moore, Joel Soria. You just heard from him there. And he was also chatting about how he may retire one day. He's still unsure. He's still uncertain. Let's pick up back onto that conversation on that, Joel Soria.
Well, I think that what I said earlier today on the show was kind of backed by Wando himself. He doesn't know exactly where things are going to end up after the year. I would have liked to ask a question and get some clarification around his answer. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to ask anything. It is what it is, but look, I think that, again, Wando gets to choose the time, the date, who's there, who's not, how minutes the goodbye game is played for. He gets to write the rules. And tonight, like the game before, he stepped up. The Quakes have been in dire need for their leader to step up, and he did so in emphatic fashion. Today, I think that he's going to keep us guessing where his future lies. I want to say that it's definitely up in the air, and it's a coin flip at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he knows himself where it stands right now. He might not have decided what he wants to do. He said that it could be his last game at Earthquake Stadium. He admitted that to us. And he said that this season's felt like a roller coaster. And the thing about a roller coaster is it's really stressful when you're on it, and that he's sort of only able to enjoy it afterwards. So he was talking about how tiring this season was for him. That makes it sound like he might be more seriously considering retirement. He's talked about it in the past. I think we didn't even expect him to play this year. He had talked about retiring last year. So there's a very good chance this could have been his final game in Earthquake Stadium. We saw just before his press conference, he was actually enjoying a nice beer out on the field. He had walked out onto the field by himself to soak in the moment, enjoy a beer. And as he said in the press conference, just to try to reminisce on all his incredible years in San Jose.
Yeah, we all posted a few tweets, photos, videos. Check them out if you get a chance of Chris walking up and down. And my thought as I was watching him do that was, I can't really imagine that a player is doing that expecting that they're going to be back for another season. It seems like something you would do when it's your last opportunity to do so as a player. We can't say for sure, that's going to be the swan song for Wondo. He certainly doesn't seem to know, and he's not going to tell us tonight. So, but it is, a poignant moment. It's a very strange year. An empty stadium seems fitting at the moment for that type of walk, and all the games have been played that way as well. The Quakes get to do this at least 2 more times. And, if they're fortunate, they'll get to do it beyond that.
Let's talk about that real quick, Jamon, coming back to you. But on Seattle, in terms of decision day and maybe potentially moving up a spot or 2 even, just a little preview. Of course, the Quakes will be without Jackson Yueill. Maybe a chance for Almeyda to rotate just a little bit. I know there's an international break before the playoffs happen to start, but that's also kind of a little awkward to manage and everything that's going on as well. And Carlos Ramirez did ask about a potential bubble format for the playoffs. I would certainly think there's lots to keep in mind here for Almeyda going into Seattle. And clearly by his comments tonight, he doesn't want to lose that game. But I would assume there must be some to maybe a little bit of rotation.
Yeah, at least the pressure's off, right? I mean, the team is in the playoffs, and so, they're going to accept their position. Again, they're going to face Portland, Seattle, Sporting Kansas City. They're all high-quality teams. All of them will pose a significant challenge for the Earthquakes, not an insurmountable, but certainly significant. And so, I think the pressure in terms of making the playoffs, that type of pressure that they faced up in Portland last year on decision day, doesn't exist this time. They will be without Jackson Yueill. We didn't really get an opportunity at this point to ask what the options are going to be there for Almeyda. But we have to imagine that, that's always going to be a blow to the spine of the team. And they're probably going to face a full-strength Seattle team who's playing for the #1 position in the conference, as they should be. And so, they're going to get the full force of Seattle. They should expect that. And I don't think they would have it at this point any other way, because they want to get kind of a tune-up for the playoffs and to be ready for the team. And by the way, it could be Seattle again. That would be for the 5th time this season. And in a shortened season, almost 20% of the games potentially could be against one team. That's 2020 for you.
Yeah, and I think, Jamon, that the absence of Jackson Yueill will be pretty crippling for the San Jose Earthquakes team. They really don't have an adequate replacement in the midfield for Jackson Yueill. It's either got to be Eric Calvillo or Luis Felipe. But we all know how poorly it went the last time Luis Felipe started in the midfield in Seattle. Quakes lost 7-1 in that game. It was an awful performance. And then what also worries me is that I think Andy Rios is out with yellow card suspension. I think I saw that on Twitter. I haven't confirmed that yet, but that would be problematic for the Quakes. I think in addition, Carlos Fierro went out with injury today. He hobbled off. We'll see how serious that is, whether that could affect his availability for the game. And as Damon was saying, I just think that's why it was so important for the Quakes to get a result tonight, because I think they're looking at a tough game in Seattle, and they would not have wanted to need a result, especially because the LA Galaxy, I think they were winning. They probably won that game against down in LA, and that means the Quakes would have needed a victory. So all in all, they're really probably really grateful to have clinched it tonight.
I can confirm Andy Rios, he did come into the game with his next yellow being a suspension. And so, yes, the Quakes will be without Andy Rios, who's been kind of a pivot number 10 for them, defensive number 10, but offensively playing as kind of a pivot forward, a little bit of a different type of role. And it'll be interesting to see what Almeyda does, because he had such a hard time figuring out who could fit into that slot. Vako is going to be on international duty with Georgia, so he's not going to be available. No Jackson Ewell, no Andy Rios. That's your 10, that's your 8. It's going to be an interesting lineup, to say the least, when we see it on Sunday.
Hang in there with me, Jamon Moore. I'm coming back to you real quick for your final thoughts on tonight. The Quakes clinching a playoff place for the first time in 3 seasons. Almeyda was brought here to bring this club from the bottom of the table and make them competitive once more. Just your 35,000-foot look of tonight.
I mean, it's the playoffs. Right, the Quakes are in, and we can argue that Colorado should not be there, do not deserve to be there. They're the team ahead of them. So you can argue that maybe the Quakes are more deserving of a 7th spot than an 8th spot, and potentially could have made it into the playoffs if this was a normal season, which it's not. And so congratulations to the team. Congratulations on a big turnaround. Because the team was not really able to celebrate with the fans tonight, I felt like Almeyda came on this show, and along with his technical staff in the middle of the field, a bit of that celebration we heard in his voice tonight as he talked to us. And I'm happy for the Black and Azul fans that they were able to take part in that type of celebration in such a strange time. And of course, the opportunity to be able to see Chris Wondolowski walking up and down the field when we don't know if it's his last time. Got a goal in the game tonight. Christian Espinoza got a goal and an assist tonight. He seems absolutely worth his money for everything that the Quakes did in order to retain him. And Shea Salinas, what can you say? Broke the all-time assist record for the team. So it's a night to remember in a very strange time in this country and in the world today.
Lovely words there, Jamon. I couldn't agree more. Moving on to you, Alex Morgan. You were there 3 years ago covering this team when they beat Minnesota right at the end there. How does tonight really compare to that time, and in terms of kind of the commonality of the spirit of the team? You certainly saw that this evening, and just kind of want to hear your wrap up with everything that's going on in the country and the world right now as well.
I mean, it's just an incredibly different feeling not having fans in the stadium to celebrate this result. That 2017 victory, the 3-2, I think, victory over Minnesota United to clinch the playoff spot in 2017 was totally different. It was like a cathartic explosion of joy. And it was also in a different context. The Quakes were, at that point in the season, really struggling. They were sliding. They were downward trending. They didn't have a coach. They didn't really have they had an interim coach at that time in Chris Leach. And yet they made the playoffs and then went on to lose 5-0 in the first round. This feels different because it feels like this team is trending upwards. It's trending positively in the right direction, that they're building something, building a project with Matías Almeyda. And then the other thing is just, I think this game was, the timing of this game was pretty ridiculous. We didn't expect this game to be played because of LAFC's positive COVID tests. You know, when it was announced that they would play last night, we thought that would hurt the Quakes. Adding another game before decision day against LAFC that could drag down their points per game total. And it turned out to be the best thing possible for this team. They clinch a playoff spot, a historic result tonight. And then also, I think for me personally, watching this game in parallel with the election results as they filter in across the country was just ridiculous. It felt like, you know, LAFC score, Donald Trump picks up a couple points in Maricopa County, the Quakes score, a bunch of good results for Biden are reported in Fulton County. You know, Yule gets sent off, Espinosa scores. It was just lots of twists and turns. A crazy night, but for the Quakes, a really, really satisfying one.
Thank you, Alex. And Joel Soria, similar to just how Alex phrased that at the end there, you and I had a chance to chat a little bit off air about everything that's going on in the country, the heightened political tension coupled with a pandemic that is going on in this country. Hearing and seeing this team succeed for the first time in a long time and get to a goal that they've been wanting to get to under a manager who is you know, very well celebrated and has been successful in the past, specifically in tournament formats as well. How does it all kind of come together for you, lad?
Well, I think that the Quakes, all things considered, took a hard look at themselves in the mirror, figured out what the problems, what the deficiencies were within them, got to work, and made it happen. Obviously, the league is very forgiving in the sense that it allows 8 teams in the West to go through into the playoffs, and in the East 10 go through. But again, as I mentioned, you can't take away the accomplishment from this team. You can't take away the grit, the tenacity, the hunger, the passion, and the fighting spirit. You just can't. You can't do that tonight. And very similar to what the team had been putting together the last couple of weeks. They went out there and they gave it all for the crest. They gave it all for the colors and for the city that they represent and for the fans that cheer them on through thick and thin. You have to believe that the best is yet to come from this team, you know, considering that, you know, the system is starting to gel, that certain players are starting to find their groove, and that in MLS playoffs, anything can happen. You know, I know it sounds cliche. I know it's a narrative that has been thrown around time and time again, but really, you know, when this team had to step up, they did it. They overturned their fortunes through the means of hard work, and I don't think that anyone has a right to lambast that. You have to applaud it. You have to tip your hat, and you know, it couldn't come at a better time, right? Considering the political and social unrest in our communities, the racism, the xenophobia, the homophobia, everything, you know, the pandemic, all the instability, you know, I think that every person needs an outlet. And for a lot of people, this is it. So for the team, you know, to step up and to deliver some good news for a group of people who tend to not get it on a yearly basis is certainly welcome. So I think that the Quakes definitely have work cut out in front of them. They travel up to Seattle. They try to climb their way up the Western Conference. And then they give the MLS Cup playoffs the best shot, which I think could be a good one. I think that they definitely will be going into playoffs as one of the dark horses. Overall, I don't think that you could really ask for more if you're a Quakes fan or someone within the organization. Stellar night.
Significant night, as you had said, Joel. Stellar night. Lots of different ways to describe it. The Quakes going back to the playoffs for the first time in 3 seasons, 3 long seasons. But they're here, and they're under the maestro, Matías Almeyda, who has turned this thing around. You heard from him this evening, very jubilant, joyous. He gave us a full encyclopedia from A to Z, from 1 to infinity, about how it all happened for him. And you can't help but not feel some pride for these players and for the community as well. We happen to cover this team. Obviously, we get the chance to chat about them on a week in, week out basis and discuss this team. Really an honor and privilege to do it with these fantastic teammates of mine, Joel Soria, Alex Morgan, Jamon Moore, and everybody that tunes into this program, community run, community supported. And I know that everyone's in their little corner right now, and we might be getting tribal about the election. In fact, most people are tribal about the election, but it is these wonderful things such as football that do bring us together. And we hope that this program has helped you as well. Just sending everybody lots of positivity, chin up to everybody. Please reach out to any of us as well. Let us know how you're doing. Like our program, subscribe to our program, send it to a friend as well. We want to be able to not only just provide you coverage, but be a resource for you to bring this together in a kind of a family atmosphere. So wherever you are tuning into this, an absolute pleasure, privilege. The Quakes clinch a playoff place for the first time in 3 years, defeating LAFC by a scoreline of 3-2. Our associate producer is Aaron Sholl. Our executive producer, Jason Sholl, and I can't say more than wonderful things about him because there's so many ways to describe the lad. He makes this show tick. He is a wonderful human being, and also sending him a virtual fist bump as well. And to the rest of my teammates, Alex Morgan, Jamon Moore, Joel Soria, signing off for tonight. Thanks for tuning in. Stay safe, everybody. Please stay safe during this challenging time. Take care. Good night.
And we'll leave you with this photo of a Chris Wondolowski pumpkin carved by Jeff Stallman. It's amazing.